They're frickin' interdimensional invaders. More blood of this. More blood.
Destroy the child. Corrupt them all.
Make fun of me all you want. This is their plan, people. They're frickin' interdimensional.
She was coached by Hill and Knowlton PR firm and his AstroTurf cutout Citizens for a Free Kuwait. Her entire testimony was BS. We are approaching the 20th anniversary of the lies that started the second Iraq War. And that was based on lies from neocons. They set up a special office in the Pentagon called the Office of Special Plans, where a den of Zionists created a cabal to fabricate and cherry-pick evidence to make the case for war with Iraq. Officially, the legal reason for the war was allegedly Iraq was in violation of UN Resolution 1441, which stipulated they couldn't have WMDs. And then the lies came. There's mobile weapons labs with anthrax, and there's yellow cake uranium being purchased from Niger to reconstitute Saddam Hussein's nuclear weapons program. None of it was true. Aluminum tubes, chemical weapons under the palaces, written by William Safire. Judith Miller's writing in the New York Times, all of the above, every single lie. And it's stovepiped straight to the president's office with a click within a click. The Office of Special Plans, which was meeting with Israeli generals who did not sign in to the Pentagon and reiterating garbage from people like Doug Feith, Richard Pearl, David Wormser, Michael Ledeen, Paul Wolfowitz, Louis Leibowitz. They're all lying. All these architects of the Iraq War go unpunished. Some of them went on to be hired in other positions. But that's where specifically we get these lies from. And Condoleezza Rice goes on TV and says, oh, we can't let the smoking gun be a mushroom cloud. They scared the public. But of all the lies, the one that should be most important about Iraq was the lie about anthrax, because this is how they erroneously attached Iraq to September 11th. James Woolsey and the outfit from the Project for a New American Century, started by Robert Kagan and William Crystal, lied about anthrax. Fred Barnes and Gary Schmidt started saying that allegedly Mohammed Atta, the lead hijacker of September 11th on Flight 11 that hit the North Tower, met senior Iraqi officials at a meeting in Prague where they passed anthrax to him from, I guess, Saddam's cartoon mobile weapons labs. It turned out Iraq did not have anthrax or mobile labs. Al-Qaeda did not have anthrax. The anthrax actually came from Fort Detrick in Maryland, within the U.S.'s own borders. They blamed the whole thing on Bruce Ivins, even though logistically he could not have been mailing anthrax from Florida and then New Jersey and still showing up at work. It didn't matter. Allegedly he killed himself before the trial, and that was that. However, every TV station never really corrected this information. They said that Iraqi officials had given anthrax to Al-Qaeda, which then made Iraq part of September 11th. And people my age signed up to join the military thinking that Iraq had something to do with 9/11. They did not. The whole thing was a lie. Coincidentally, Judith Miller, who lied about aluminum tubes and mobile weapons lab, happened to be the same journalist who allegedly got a hoax letter of anthrax in the mail. Well, isn't that something? Al-Qaeda/Iraq is sending anthrax to Patrick Leahy and Tom Daschle, but Judith Miller gets the fake kind. And it wasn't a copycat attack, and we know this because the notes contained in the letters with real anthrax had not been opened yet before the notes that were identical notes were sent from the anthrax with harmless powder. Therefore, whoever sent the original anthrax also sent the hoax letters. Why would they send fake anthrax to the war architect of Judith Miller and real anthrax to people like Leahy, who, if you were to pass the Leahy Amendment, would forbid military aid to Israel? And then the notes said, "Death to America, death to Israel. P.S. for evil Muslims." Gee, I wonder who really stole anthrax from the labs and sent it to politicians. Probably the same people whose organizations were celebrating the attacks. But 9/11 is another one of these events. Or the dead to rights, you can see state assistance of intelligence agencies helping hijackers. They were given logistical support and financial support by the Saudi government. Khalid al-Midhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi were traced to a summit meeting in Malaysia where they met with Al-Qaeda operatives, spent the night with KSM. They come back using their real names, living in the United States. Two conduits, Osama Basnan and Omar Bayoumi, are helping them get an apartment, giving them logistical support. Their wives, through Riggs Banks, are giving them finances. They move these people around. They're going to flight schools in the United States. Ramzi Youssef's plan, who was an architect for the World Trade Center attack in 1993, called for using airplanes to hit targets. And you have people going and meeting with Al-Qaeda operatives at flight schools now inside the United States, and you can't imagine that they're going to use an airplane and attack the World Trade Center, the same thing they hit last time, by the same planners. Yeah, right. But you can't talk about 9/11 in a serious way because of the kookification about September 11th and the great tar baby that's been made out of that, the people that deny airplanes and talk about thermite grenades and every other kind of nonsense. There is a real story there. Dead to rights, they lied about anthrax and falsely associated it to Iraq. Almost 1 million Iraqis are dead from that war. And it was based on deception. And the way they were able to do that was absolute media control. You have a former APAC employee in Wolf Blitzer pacing around on CNN pontificating about shock and awe and how we should call it A-Day. I guess he didn't realize A-Day just means A. He wanted something like D-Day, right? They're all Bill O'Reilly and all the screaming heads back then in 2003. They're all yelling about Saddam, and then they changed it to, well, we're protecting the Kurds. They kept changing the reasons because WMDs were not based on mistakes or miscalculations. It was intentional deception. But all of that would have been undone by free speech. She was coached by Hill and Knowlton PR firm and his AstroTurf cutout Citizens for a Free Kuwait. Her entire testimony was BS. We are approaching the 20th anniversary of the lies that That is a clip from a much longer speech that I'm giving on March 24th for Sarah Westall's gig. I have information about that on Substack. It's myself and about more than a dozen other speakers. Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, Scott Ritter, Sarah herself, a bunch of doctors and engineers, and people who have all been canceled on this or that, right? And that's really what it comes down to. Like each set of war propaganda, bogus lies about Ukraine, Libya, Syria, Iraq, you name it. Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan with the drone strikes and things. It's always packaged with BS from Zionist media. Always. They always lie. The lies are different in each one, but the solution is the same in each one. Free speech. If there had been one news outlet, because it wasn't really social media in 2002 and 3 and lead up to this war, a little bit with MySpace, I guess. There was nothing before the first Gulf War. But if there had just been one to say, there are no WMDs because they have not provided any evidence of weapons of mass destruction, and what they have said about oxidized uranium or yellow cake uranium, we know is false because it's based on forged documents. What they're saying about aluminum tubes doesn't matter. Those are not centrifuges for a nuclear weapons program. They could have been used for Scuds, though. There were no chemical weapons under the palaces of Saddam. It was based on just a fantasy from William Safire. And there are no mobile weapons labs. David Kelly was murdered over that. That's why they're pointing to cartoons. They don't have WMDs. There were no babies on incubators being thrown on the floor, or people drowned in their own swimming pools with electrodes tied to their genitals and all the other stuff that girl made up. Sounded like electric floors and German Shepherd with poison fang teeth. I mean, it's just ridiculous propaganda. Ukraine, I mean, unprovoked and unjustified, my behind. Poroshenko got up on TV and said, our children will be going to elementary school. Their children, meaning the people in the Donbass, will be cowering in the basements because of will be cowering in the basements because of Ukrainian artillery. And they did. Because they lob artillery into the Donbass, killing ethnic Russians. They had to teach school underground. Some just didn't go at all. In fact, that's how it started in February last year, was, again, they pulled out heavy artillery and they hit an elementary school. Can you imagine that? Going on TV and saying, like, red states or blue states or whichever, they're going to cower in their basements because we're going to shoot at them with artillery, so their kids have to go underground. And they killed thousands of children. 14,000 people in Donbass died for 8 years, right? Mostly 2015. But it went on. Sniper fire, small arms fire, and then again, artillery. That's not unprovoked. And they had the Minsk Agreement 1 and 2. And then we learned from Angela Merkel, that trollop, whatever, that, it was just to buy time so they could arm and train Ukrainian military. It's de facto NATO. Joaquin Flores and I were talking about this in 2014. Justin Raimondo predicted it in 2013. Said this is what's coming. Pepe Escobar and I, from Asia Times, back then he was working with them, we talked about it 2014 after the Maidan coup. Even joked about having the People's Republic of Donetsk, which happened. Talked about it with Senator Richard Black, also in 2014, 2015. We had on guests, and then this more recent roundup we've had on Larry Johnson from the State Department. We've had on Scott Ritter, former weapons inspector and Marine writer. We've had on, Andrei Martyanov, by the way. This book, we always talk about Western Civ and the fall of West. This is what you need. Disintegration. Excuse me. We had on Lyra recently, who was banned from YouTube. All these people face censorship. Twitter banned Escobar and Ritter on the same day. course, I've been banned. Flores has been banned. It's sick. We had on Mark Sloboda. We had on the Saker. I believe Mark had his PayPal canceled. The entirety of Consortium News had PayPal canceled. And all those people. And we interviewed a lot of people from over there. But then again, all those videos are gone because YouTube and Vimeo erased them. And all the MP3s I had that were on Patreon, those are gone too because they erased them. They erased me. But there would have been, they're on A&C report, but let's face it, like people don't really go to websites as much as they do like a social media site. Maybe that habit ought to change too, but I'd like to re-upload. I think I uploaded a bunch of them on Substack back in the day, but that was when my Substack was just getting going. But it wasn't like an unpredictable thing because it was provoked. And I think you can argue about whether it's justified or unjustified, but what else are they supposed to do? What would America do if the Russians were training Cubans and put missiles in there? Right? We don't have to guess. It was the Bay of Pigs is what they would do. And Zelensky, I mean, they're rounding them up now like teenagers and things and off to the front. Go to Bakhmut. Wagner controls about 75% of Bakhmut. I remember every day after this, mission accomplished speech from Bush the Lesser, I'd read about Iraqis getting killed and Americans getting killed. Antiwar.com used to list it. This something happened in Mosul today. Something happened in Tikrit. This happened in Baghdad. This happened in Fallujah. Like people were learning the geography of Iraq because of the war. The same with Ukraine. They know every little city and town now because of the war. I doubt many people had heard of Bakhmut before this war, recent war in Ukraine. Some people knew a little bit, but that was because of World War II. Americans learn geography through war. That's why they're the best at geography. It's not a subject many people study. But this is the 20th anniversary of the Iraq War. It was pointless. It was brought on by a neocon cabal of Jewish supremacists for Israeli interests. It was not the petrodollar. It was not oil. It wasn't because they actually thought that there were weapons, but actually there wasn't. They knew. It was an excuse. They did it twice. Same people started both wars. And every newspaper and every television outlet lied to your face. The Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, Fox, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, they all lied. Every single lie from this small group of a couple dozen neocon Jewish supremacist Zionists was reiterated like little cheerleaders from the alphabet networks and the newspapers. And that's all they got to do. There's 6 networks and a couple giant papers, and they all lie to your face. The first newspaper in the United States to lie about the anthrax was owned by Charles Kushner, the New York Observer. And then it was the LA Times and so on. And they lied. And erroneously attached that to 9/11 when Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. They lied about 9/11 also. Can't get to the bottom of that because of the kook movement. But I would say 20 years late, people are finally admitting, you know what? The second Iraq War was a bad idea. It was faulty intelligence. But you ought to question, how come, with the billions of dollars that they have, not a single mass media outlet in the US or the UK could figure out that they're being duped? And yet, a college student with nothing but a a regular computer and a chair could figure it out. I was at the the RNC process, excuse me, at New York City. Michael Moore and a bunch of those people are prominent back then. This huge sign, it said Youth Against War, and I personally talked about the Office of Special Plans to every media that would have me. And I used the Native American card to get on TV, awarded regalia and everything, and that's what works. Because that, you know what? That's what they care about, race, right? I'm like, whatever, I'm trying to save lives, especially Iraqi children. I'll do what I gotta do to get a camera. I looked kind of odd, but it got a lot of news media. But not one of them used what I said because I was talking about the OSP. And they're like, what's the OSP? I'm like, by God, you've got Israeli generals checking in and out of the Pentagon without even signing in. Karen Katalski went over that. I interviewed her a few times too. And they're meeting with this little clique set up in Feist's office, and they're lying, fabricating this information. And Bush has just basically asked them, tell me it's Iraq. So they did. But imagine if one of those interviews had hit the airwaves and been on TV and you'd heard all that back then. They wouldn't have been able to go to war. All of it is predicated on control of mass media. Oh, I have someone who just landed in Japan. I have to... I am going to have to go. I would take shekel chats. It doesn't look like there are any anyway. It's nothing on Entropy, nothing on... Oh, there was on Power Chat. All right, we'll run through these. I'm going to call this person back because I think they're stuck at the airport. Anonymous says, do you offer 9/11 film and physical media? I have a poster. That's about it. I don't do physical media because I have to mail it from Asia. Dan sends in a 20 and says, why is worldwide doubling and tripling down on Ukraine? Please look up the president, the prime minister, the defense minister, the foreign minister, and the entire cabinet, and the governors and the oligarchs, and see what they all have in common. That's why they're tripling down on Ukraine. That has a long answer. I've addressed it in other videos, but okay, I'll put it on Substack later today because I have to help. This person is see, if you come to Japan and you don't speak Japanese, you're not, once you leave the airport, you won't be able to get a bus, a train, or anything. Nobody speaks English, especially in Kansai. Let's see. Nothing on Odysee or Rumble. Oh, there is one on Entropy suddenly. Willem Uram says Rainbow Frog. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I believe Edwards is here, Sneeko's here, and some others. So I'm going to go address this. But y'all have a wonderful day. Just remember, the lies don't work if you can tell the truth. You can only tell the truth with free speech. It is imperative to build up Rumble, Substack, maybe Telegram, these alternative platforms. If you can reach out 1 or 2 friends today and say, hey, add this guy's Rumble, you can get the free version of Substack. Add that. I would much appreciate it. Looking at the calendar, we had a bunch of events. We'll go over those tomorrow. Got a lot of important things to do today, so we will see you soon. And we'll be talking more about Iraq because I have a lot to say on that. The 24th is the speech. That information will be on Substack after I handle this semi-crisis we have. If you use the promo code Dawson, you save $25. That's a nice chunk taken off. If you use the promo code, that info is, some of it's on Substack already. I will repost it, and we'll all see you tomorrow. Peace.